Hi folks, I'm Gene McLaughlin. I'd like to welcome you to Let's Talk About. Today we're going to talk about the inner workings of Middlesex County. And to help us do that, our guest is the County Clerk of Middlesex County, Elaine Flynn. Elaine, welcome and thank you for coming out today.
Thank you so much, Gene. And I am an Old Bridge resident.
And you are an Old Bridge resident. That's even better, Elaine.
Right.
Okay. Could you give us just a little background, let people know a little bit about you? You grew up in Old Bridge and...
Well, I moved into Old Bridge from Perth Amboy in 1964 when my daughter was born.
Okay.
And we bought a house in Sarahwood South. And my children went to Shepherd School. They went to the high school here. And my husband got involved in politics.
I remember when your husband was mayor.
Yes, he was mayor and he was also an assemblyman.
Right.
So it was an exciting time, but raising, at that time, 4 children was my major goal.
Major goal is it? Yeah. Then that was the way to do it. I guess unlike today.
That's true.
Elaine, you were a teacher one time. For a lot of times. How long?
I taught in McDivitt School for 27 years.
Wow.
And I had many children who are now adults who come to the county clerk's office and see my name and come and visit.
Okay. And that must be refreshing to see.
It's delightful, but of course they look a little different than they did when they were 10 years old.
I bet. What subjects did you teach then at grammar school level?
I basically loved and taught a lot of science and math.
Okay. And what was science like then with the kids?
Well,
like it is today.
What fascinated me then and still does is take plate tectonics.
Okay, really?
Because the Earth is changing. We have climate changing rapidly as we see the glaciers melt. So I do still keep up with the science part of that because I do love it.
Okay. Elaine, when you were here, you served also in a civic capacity on a number of boards. As I recall, planning, zoning, what else were you involved in?
I was planning board chairman and zoning board chairman. I was on the recreation committee. It was easy to get involved, and I encourage anybody out there to get involved in your local government because you are a help.
Well, I think we've seen over the years that volunteers really help this township run.
Absolutely.
I mean, Mayor and I discuss it frequently on his program. Elaine, how did you go from teaching to clerking? How did you get to be a county clerk?
Well, I was offered the position of running by a senator, Senator Lynch, and I thought about it for a couple of weeks, and then I said I was okay. I had 27 years in, and I was old enough, so I could make a change, and I liked the challenge, so I chose to accept his inquiry, and I did run.
Okay, did you have to have any special qualifications at that time to run for office? Is there a clerk school? You go to clerk school or?
Yes, citizen and a age requirement, which I met, and it was that easy.
Just pretty business skills.
It's also encouraging to have someone support you for that.
Oh, I bet it is.
Yes.
Elaine, you also have been involved with a number of different organizations.
That's correct.
I know, again, looking at some of your background, I noticed you were the president of the Constitutional Office of New Jersey.
Yes, that is an office that I'm very proud of, actually, because we are in touch with all the surrogates, all the sheriffs, and all the county clerks and registers in the state of New Jersey. And being head of that organization was a very proud moment for me.
Okay. And how about Kiwanis? You're still a member of Kiwanis, right?
Yes, I am. And the Kiwanis help children, and we don't take any fees. Everything we earn goes to help children.
Okay, and I think Kiwanis has made some donations to Camp Robin over the years, too.
Yes, they do. We do a lot of that, and we also give gifts, and there are so many things that we help them with. And any money that we get from them is never used for anything but for the children that we help.
Okay, Elaine, thank you. Elaine, for the benefit of the residents who may not know anything about the county clerk's office, could you give us a brief overview? What is it like? What are the duties, the responsibilities? What are you involved in?
Well, the county clerk's office, when I joined it 24 years ago, had no computers.
Really?
And today we know we run in a computer age.
Yes, ma'am.
Some of the things that my office covers are we register and file all land transactions that happen in the county of Middlesex.
Okay.
And we have, and I'm talking 10 years ago, we had 40 million kind of pages, but not in a computer, of course,
Yeah.
that we register. We do land transactions from top to bottom.
Really?
So, and if you want anything about your land, you can contact my office and they will help you out.
Yeah, do you interact with the tax collectors, the tax assessors here, Brian, for instance, and Dawn?
Well, they get some of our readouts, and they can judge a lot of things about the land because we register them.
Okay, do you lay down any ground rules for them to follow in order to register land? Are there any specific ground rules
What do you mean?
that you have to follow, that they have to follow to, support
Oh, there's
you?
certain rules. We have a manual that the constitutional officers have put out, which it describes about 140 different filings that could happen in my office. And this book is very valuable to know what you need to do
Yes.
in order to be registered or to file in my office.
Wow, okay, that sounds
We
pretty complex.
we probably make the most money for any other entity in this county.
The big function is to
Yes.
make money on property. Okay.
One of the things that's changed over the years, though, is people used to send in all their papers and the filings. It would take weeks to get to the paper and to open it, to then verify everything. Today, almost 50% of our business is done by e-filing, which is the attorney, for example, has a
Right.
closing. He goes into his computer and he can file that paper that day.
Okay, so that makes it a lot easier all around, eh?
And it's less paper.
And
That's
you
all.
had the pleasure of modernizing a lot of this, huh?
Yes,
During your
because
tenure here.
when I came to the county clerk's office, there were no papers. I mean, there were no computers.
No computers,
sorry.
yeah, you said. Yeah.
And the tables in the county clerk's office were actually covered with carpeting because the books were so heavy
big, heavy,
that when
yeah, I
they
remember those.
put them down, they slammed and made a lot of noise.
Yes.
And it didn't seem like that was the way to continue to
Yeah.
go. So with the help of the IT department, I changed to computers, and everything is online now. So you
Yeah.
can look at your property, and there is also a service that we offer that if you are interested in anybody looking at your property, you can file with us, and we will give you an update if somebody tries to look at your property.
Really?
It's a courtesy, but it also keeps you aware of if anybody has an interest in your property and why are they looking at it.
Yeah.
You know, what's going on. And you have an opportunity to file with us, and we can warn you, in
Yeah.
quotes,
That's
that something
interesting.
is going on.
Yeah, people get suspicious. Somebody's looking at property, eminent
Right.
domain, or somebody wants to buy the property and do something else. Okay. Elaine, office is broken down into three parts. Registry. help me.
Registry is the biggest part.
Yes.
Then the second part is the passport office,
Mm-hmm.
where we do naturalizations. We give out cards for veterans, and we have the Gold Star Parents
Mm-hmm.
card, which allows them to get a discount at many, many stores that have cooperated with
Right.
us.
Do you, when you say naturalization, what do you mean? You naturalize people, or do the paperwork
People want to
for them?
look up the records of their family or deceased. If they can prove what family member they are, I have a lady, Tracy Orr, who just loves to look at naturalizations to see where they came from and so forth, and we help them out with that.
So this would give them an indication of background for some kind of a document they want to file, or some
Right,
kind of
that's correct.
action they want to take.
And the third part
Yes,
of
ma'am.
my office is, of course, elections, which we are getting more and more immersed in it as it becomes a national issue.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're going to hold that until we get to part two of our discussion today.
I also do weddings.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, you mentioned that off the air. Tell us about marrying people. What's it
Well-
like to marry someone?
At first, I remember exactly what office I was, where I was standing, and I was very nervous because I was joining two people who made a commitment to each other, and I was making it official. after a long stretch of doing many, many weddings, it became easier and easier, and I enjoyed it immensely. I have just married my granddaughter,
Really?
Caitlin, last weekend. I married her brother the year before.
All right.
So it's very enjoyable.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like something you really like. Do you have to get special permission, special authority, or do you have that by virtue of the fact you're the clerk?
By the virtue of my job, I have it. People can become an officiant, but they have to contact the Secretary of State.
Okay, so this is now a civil marriage, considered
Yes,
to be
it
a civil
is.
marriage, and that can be the only marriage that some people have, for the record.
It's perfectly official, and there are some people that are going to get married overseas,
Yes.
doing a cultural wedding or something like that, or a religious ceremony, but they want the paperwork that guarantees that they're married, and I do that.
Okay, in an order of sequence, when you talk about a civil marriage, what comes first, the religious marriage and then the civil marriage, or the civil marriage and then the religious
Well,
marriage?
if you get married religiously, that's sufficient.
That's sufficient.
Yeah, and you get married civilly, that's sufficient.
Okay.
Some people like to do both.
What do you enjoy most about it?
Well, I like to see the happiness in people. And I also can see sometimes when they're not so happy.
That's what I was going to ask you. Can you sense what's going to be a good union and something that's not going to turn out so well by virtue of
I
personality?
don't know if I could do that, because some people ask me, how many of the weddings have you done are divorced? That I don't know.
Right.
But on the get-go, I would say that I can look into their eyes and see the way they look at each other,
Really?
that I think they have a better chance than most.
I'm making it. How many weddings have you done?
Between 3,000 and 4,000.
Wow. You've got enough to write a book.
I started to save all the paraphernalia on
Yes.
it, but my drawer got too full. I mean, it was because every wedding is a unique experience.
Yeah, I was going to say, but it'd be interesting if you could just, minimize some of it or select the most important or the most memorable weddings and what you've
Well,
gone
I
through
did
for that.
a flower child wedding. I did a wedding for a couple that got married in my office and then came back a year later and said, nobody knows we're married. Could you marry us at the Hyatt? The same time, same day. So we pretended it was their first wedding, and I did it again.
Right.
I married a witch to a warlock. That's what they told me.
A witch to a warlock. Okay. I don't know if we should talk about that, but that's okay. Okay.
And some of the outfits that they wear are quite amazing. I had 4 people come in with ShopRite shirts. They met in ShopRite, and their attendants wore ShopRite shirts. They wore ShopRite shirts, and I married them.
Hey,
Unique.
it is what it is, huh?
It is what it
unique.
is.
Elaine, can I ask you to hold your thought a minute? We're going to be
Sure.
taking a break. Folks, we're going to be taking a break right now. We're talking with Elaine Flynn, who's the county clerk of Middlesex County, and she's sharing with us some of the inner workings of the county. And we'll be back in a moment to talk about the entire voting and registration process. So please stay with us.
Caring for a family member can be challenging and lead to countless questions for them and for you. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
Folks, welcome back to Let's Talk About. Our guest today is Elaine Flynn, who is the county clerk of Middlesex County. And Elaine, if we can jump right back to where we were, can we talk a little bit about voting and all the things going on now in light of the recent controversies about voting? Can we just cover a couple of the particulars, early voting, registration, and so on? Can you just take us through the process of voting for a minute?
Early voting means to vote by mail.
Okay.
And we have made a very conscious effort to get more people to vote, and we are using the vote by mail as a means to do that.
Okay. Now, is that the same as absentee balloting, or is that something else?
Absentee is the old name we used it for. Vote by mail is all year long, and you don't need an excuse. As a matter of fact, that was my initiative. What do you need an excuse to vote by mail when you want to? You don't need to make up something. Vote by mail. And we have thousands and thousands and more thousands that vote by mail every year.
Really? It just keeps them from going to the polls.
Yeah.
As I mentioned to you off the air, though, does voting by mail or away from the polls, does that encourage any kind of mischief, voting more than once or, casting multiple ballots?
Well, as voting by mail may, but I do not see that. When the ballot comes back to the Board of Elections where they count it,
Yes, ma'am.
it is put into the statewide system, and that name will not receive any more. Even if another one comes in, that will not be counted.
Okay. When they vote by mail, have they received anything from your office prior to that, an application or something that they do send in a vote, or is it just online, or how do they do it?
They can get a vote by mail application because every September I send out a booklet that explains the vote by mail process, any questions they might have, and also they can call my office at 732-745-4202, and my staff will be happy to help them with anything they need.
Okay, can we talk a minute about where people register? When do they have to register to vote? Is there a particular, aside from the early voting people want to vote in person, where do they go? When do they have to be there?
They can call my office. They can go to your municipal clerk.
Okay.
Usually we drop things off at the library. Most political organizations have vote by mail applications. You can go online, njelections.org, and get an application, and you mail it to the Board of Elections in this county that you live in. And I do have the list of all the counties and where they can send it or ask for an application.
Now, if they want to come in person, do they go to the individual clerk's office, like here in this township? They go to the clerk's office to register to vote?
They can, and they can come to my office, which is at 75 Bayard Street in New Brunswick.
Okay, one other question, if I may. There seems to be a lot of controversy in the papers lately about voting mechanisms, voting machines. Do we have a paper ballot? Do we have a push-button ballot, a mechanical ballot? What's going on there? Why is all this controversy breaking up about some states have very slick voting mechanisms, other states are still doing paper ballots? What happens there?
The electronic voting machines that we have are not connected to the internet at all. It's an internal machine and mechanism that can't be hacked that way.
Okay.
The freeholders have recently passed a bill that allows us to buy new voting machines. That is the purview of the Board of Elections. They will determine the best ones for our county, and some of the things they must have that we insist on is they have to have a paper trail, which means after they vote, there is a copy falling in, not with any identification, but it is what they voted. It also... Okay, and then we also have, for the people that are hard of hearing, we have an audio in that polling place.
Okay.
The people that are have visual problems, they can bring someone into the voting booth with them.
Can they?
And it's usually a trusted relative.
Okay, you're very trusted. Okay.
Trusted relative.
Okay, how about polling places, Elaine? Where do people vote? There's so many of them. How do we know where, when? They change a lot.
Well, when they get the sample ballot, which I mail out approximately a week, if not sooner,
Right.
before the election, there is a place on the ballot that tells you exactly where to go. The ballot polling places are selected because they're barrier-free, they're accessible to all kinds of handicaps, and in many cases they are schools.
Schools, yeah, it seems to be schools and or public facilities, as you said,
Right.
of some kind. Okay, but they are made known to the people. Okay, tabulating results. The results come in. Who does the tabulation?
The tabulating is done by the Board of Elections, and it is in our internal machines, and I then give out the numbers from my office.
How do you manage to make early estimates of voting? You know, it seems very popular today with the TV stations that with 3% of the ballots in, so-and-so is going to be a winner. How do you get the tabulation through? Are these samples for that reason?
I don't do that, but I believe most of the news organizations, they look at the places where the vote came in,
Right.
and let's say it's more Republican,
Yeah.
they will give a bigger number to that, but they don't have anything accurate at that point.
No, it's just, as you say, based on sampling. It's done by
Right.
some sampling organization, religion, ethnicity,
Sure.
whatever, however they vote. How about recounts? There seems also in the news these days with elections, this thing in North Carolina I'm referring to, I don't think it's still settled.
Yeah, I think they're going to redo it.
They're going to redo it. I mean, is that weird? I mean, how do you do recount? When can a candidate demand a recount?
All right. If I would recommend that anybody that's running and it's very close, I would do a recount.
You would?
I would make sure that everything is all the way it should be and honest and upright.
Yes.
And they just have to file with the Board of Elections, and those machines have been impounded, by the way.
Okay.
After an election, for 15 days, they were impounded in case anybody wants to
Okay.
challenge a finding.
Okay, how often do you get a recount on average?
It's interesting that many small towns have recounts because there's less voters, so the numbers are close together.
And smaller and bunched.
And it's amazing. I think in South Amboy we've had it, Middletown, many towns, the smaller towns usually have it.
Yeah, I can see that because the number
Yeah.
of people voting is 1,200, 1,800, 2,000. One thing, and I know it's probably a touchy subject, is fraud, voter fraud. How often does this occur?
We make every effort to eliminate any possibility of that. I feel that we are almost 100%, if not 100%, free of that
Okay.
problem. Because I know the machines in Trenton, as soon as the vote comes in, nobody else can vote with that number or name. And it's pretty accurate.
Okay, so when somebody votes here in the township, that vote is registered at the same time in Trenton?
No.
No, it's voted in your...
Right now, it goes to a cartridge that's in the machine.
Okay.
It keeps that, but there's also a ballot counter inside the machine. At the end of the day, the poll worker shuts off the thing, removes the cartridge, and brings it to Stella, our municipal clerk, and she gets the slips of paper, tells us the numbers, and it's calculated from the 25 towns.
Okay. One other question that seems to be controversial these days, and that is a photo ID to vote. Some people say it's discrimination, etc. Do you need or should you have photo ID to vote, considering you need one to get auto registration, to get on an airplane, to get a passport, yada yada? Should you have one?
In order to vote the first time, you need proof of who you are. So that's when they use the photo ID.
Okay, so when you actually go to the polls, you're already in the books.
Right.
Okay. Let's turn the tables for a minute, if we may. Primary elections are coming up in June.
Right.
What do I have to do if I want to get on the ballot?
Well,
if I want to run for mayor, if I want to run for council at large, whatever, what do I have to do?
You have to get a petition. You have to get at least 50 signatures of people that support you, and you have to turn it into the municipal clerk.
Okay. Do you get involved in that process as the county clerk?
They just send me the results of who they are putting on the ballot, that we would put on the ballot.
Okay. So when that happens, what else does a candidate have to have? What other qualifications? Anything, just a desire to run for office, to be a good
Well,
citizen?
he has to prove that he lives in the town, and sometimes just a water bill will say that.
Yeah.
It could be on his license or her license, but there are ways to prove that somebody lives where they do live. And there are always watchdogs, which I appreciate,
Yes.
that look out and say, wait a minute, that person doesn't live here, that person.
Right.
But they are very able to question something and look for the proof.
That's what I was going to say, because again, it's a desirable thing with many people to be a candidate, and many people are driven to be candidates. Some people probably, very very serious about it. Maybe some other people shouldn't be candidates,
Yeah, right.
but it's open to everybody, in effect. Okay, Elaine, one thing. You gave me at the break some brochures that you distribute, and you mentioned that you distribute them in several languages. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, the companies, the people down in Trenton determine that 5% of our surnames are of a different language. Then they determine that we must print almost everything for the elections in that language.
Really?
Right now, we are mandated to do English, Gujarat, and Spanish.
Spanish, okay. And that's broken down, as you say, demographically, this has been determined, those are the key languages.
Right, and there are two on the back burner that may, appear in the next couple of years. That's Hindi and Punjab.
Really? Wow. That's got to be a challenge to you, too, in keeping records as well.
Well, we
isn't
have
it?
to have adequate interpretations, because languages, by little marks and signs, change the number or the
connotation
value
and
of what they're saying.
Yeah.
So it's very important that we do that accurately, and we have certified people that do the interpretations.
Okay. Elaine, one last question. What's the biggest challenge you have on your job right now, would you say?
Well, the world is changing as we speak, and every computer, we try to keep it up to date. We just got new computers. The freeholders just ordered new voting machines. We try to keep up with everything that's going on. Also, down in Trenton, they make a lot of changes, little ones and big ones. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest one was a couple of years ago, or a year and a half ago, they passed 647 in the Senate, which mandated us to send ballots to everybody that vote by mail. And that included fire elections, school board elections, primary elections, and people were a little confused because they never applied for these.
Right.
But the law mandated that we send it to them unless they opt out. They can call my office and opt out of doing fire elections, primary elections, school board elections, and they can do that. So they don't have to receive it, but that's the reason they are getting it.
Okay, well, Elaine, our time is drawing to a close. I want to thank you very much for coming in today. You're very
a
helpful,
pleasure.
very informative. Tell us a lot we don't know about your job. Folks, we've been talking with Elaine Flynn. As I mentioned, she is the county clerk of Middlesex County. Hope we gave you some insight into the operations of the clerk's office and how you can participate or can avail yourself of their services. We will put on the screen some telephone numbers, some websites that you can contact should you wish to reach out to the Middlesex County Clerk's office. And Elaine, many thanks for coming again. Lots of
Appreciate
luck.
it.
Take care.
Thanks, Gene.
Be well. Folks, this has been Let's Talk About for this time. I'm Gene McLaughlin. We'll see you next time. Take care.